This is me, and I'm currently really backed up, but I can't go. Luckily though, I made these high fiber recipes that fix the problem. Each of them are super easy to make, taste absolutely amazing, and are high enough on fiber that they're guaranteed to make you run to the bathroom. And fiber has a lot more benefits for you besides digestive help, and making high fiber recipes is a lot more straightforward than you think. We're first gonna be making some delicious enchiladas, and it all starts with our enchilada sauce. And we're gonna need to grab ourselves some dried Guajillo chilies. I'm gonna be using about 4 Guajillo chilies, and to prep them, we're just gonna cut off the end of it and remove any of the seeds that's in the inside of them. From here, we're gonna preheat a dry pan and throw our chilies in there just to toast for about a minute or two. You should notice them slowly becoming more and more fragrant the more you toast it. Now, while it's toasting, we're gonna grab ourselves 1 white onion and we're just gonna give it a nice chopping. So I'm gonna cut off the tip, split it in half, and then peel off that outside layer. We're then gonna give it vertical cuts along the top of the white onion without passing the root, and then we're gonna run our knife and give it a nice rough chopping. Now, don't be scared to do more of a rustic chop. It doesn't have to be finely cut or anything. It's whatever's easiest for you. Now, I'm gonna take my chilies out of the pan. They've toasted up and smell really fragrant now. I'm gonna hit this pan with a little bit of olive oil, and I'm gonna throw in all of our chopped white onions. Hit it with a pinch of salt, and we're gonna let this saute for a couple minutes until it's softened, become translucent. While that's sauteing, we're gonna grab our next ingredient, which is 1 can of fire roasted diced tomatoes. I'm just gonna crack this can open and get it ready so we could dump it into the saute mixture. And I'm also gonna prep 2 cups of chicken stock, which I prefer to use this better than bouillon beef base. Just throw in 2 teaspoons for 2 cups of water. And try your best not to spill the water all over your cutting board. Oh, spilled it all over the place. Now our onions have sauteed nicely. We're gonna next throw in 3 to 4 crushed garlic cloves in there, and we're gonna saute those for just about 30 seconds, just so they get fragrant. After the garlic, we're gonna now put in 1 teaspoon of cumin, mixing it together with all the onions and the garlic and letting it toast for another 30 seconds. Now I'm gonna move our sauteed onions from the pan into a pot, which I should have been using from the beginning. I made a mistake, my bad. I'm next gonna throw our Guajillo chilies back in there, along with our roasted tomatoes and our 2 cups of chicken stock. Now we're gonna bring this to medium-high heat and let it get to a gentle simmer, and simmer this sucker for 10 to 15 minutes. This will hydrate the chilies and make it easier to blend them shortly. Once our chilies are nicely hydrated, we're gonna grab ourselves an immersion blender and then stick it in there and blend everything together. If you don't have an immersion blender, you could easily just use a regular blender or a food processor, whichever you have. I just prefer this hand blender because it's just very easy to clean and it does a good enough job for me. Just be careful not to bring the blender up while it's still on. Oh, that scared me. Once everything is blended, give it a taste and make sure everything is nicely balanced. Ooh. Oh my God, I just drooled. What the heck? So much saliva just came out of my mouth. Ew. I'm gonna toss in a teaspoon of sugar to balance out the acidity, as well as a teaspoon of salt to bring up those flavors. Give it a mix, try not to hit yourself with any of the sauce, and taste it again to make sure everything's in a good spot. Oh yeah, we're there. We are there, that's phenomenal. That's some good stuff. Now this is our enchilada sauce, and you can strain it out, but I wanna keep all those little chunky bits because those are all really high in fiber and good for you. I'm gonna set this sucker to the side, and now let's get to work on our enchiladas. We'll first need our butternut squash, and this is around 400 grams worth, or about 2.5 cups. Now in a large sheet pan, we're gonna set to medium-high heat and toss in a couple tablespoons of olive oil. We're next gonna throw in our butternut squash, but please be careful not to touch the pan with your finger. The pan's hot and I touched it. We're gonna now hit it with a strong pinch of salt and let this saute and soften. We're gonna be cooking these for 5 to 10 minutes until they're nice and soft. In the meantime, that gives us plenty of time to prep our Poblano pepper. I'm gonna cut off the end of it and then remove the seeds from the inside of the pepper. I'll then split it in half and then cut nice long planks out of it. Then I'm gonna rotate those planks and run my knife through it, giving us nice small little pieces. Oh, and don't forget to pop out the flesh around the stem. Just give that a nice little chopping, and it's just as good as the rest of the Poblano pepper. Now our butternut squash has been sauteing for about 5 minutes, and they have some some decent color on them. I'm gonna throw in all of our minced poblano peppers in there, mixing it together before tossing in 2 teaspoons of chili powder. Give it another mixing, and we're gonna saute this for about 2 to 4 minutes. After sauteing the poblano peppers for about a couple minutes, we're gonna next splash in about 1/4 of a cup of water to properly steam the butternut squash. This is only if they're not softened fully. If you try to pierce them with a fork, just let that water evaporate and steam those butternut squash to fully soften them. Once they're softened, we're gonna now toss in half a can of drained black beans, mixing it all together, and then we're gonna hit it with a strong pinch of salt before tasting it, making sure we're in a good spot. I'm a fan, actually. That's actually really good. Now, to build these enchiladas, what we're gonna first do is grab ourselves a 9x13 baking dish, and we're gonna scoop in a little bit of our enchilada sauce on the bottom of our dish. I'm also gonna head on over to our oven and set it to 350 degrees convection bake. I'm next gonna grab myself some corn tortillas, and we're gonna lay them down on our cutting board and fill it up with 1 scoop of our sauteed butternut squash, poblano pepper, black bean mixture. I'm then gonna roll it up pretty tightly into a tube, and then I'm gonna lay it down into our baking dish to have the folds facing downwards. Once your baking dish is filled with enchiladas, we're gonna next drizzle on more of our enchilada sauce on top of it, making sure to cover every nook and cranny. I only use a little less than half of our sauce in total. I'll next freshly grate some Colby Jack cheese on top of it, and now this sucker is ready to be thrown in the oven. I'm gonna wrap the top of it with some aluminum foil, and I'm gonna throw it in our oven that's already set to 350 degrees for 10 minutes. At the end of the 10 minutes, we're gonna take our baking dish out of the oven and then remove the aluminum foil, throwing it back in there for additional 5 to 10 minutes, just until the cheese is melted. After about 8 minutes, the cheese is now nicely melted. Now, I would recommend waiting a couple minutes just so that cheese could kind of solidify a little bit and not ooze everywhere, but if you want, you could just dig into it right now. I'm gonna put 2 pieces of enchiladas on a small little plate, and I'm gonna put a little bit of cabbage off to the side just for decor. I'll hit it with a light pinch of some minced cilantro, and now you have a delicious enchilada recipe that's high on fiber, but most importantly tastes really good, so you can eat more and more of it to get the job done. I was personally genuinely surprised at how good this was. I knew it would be tasty, but I didn't realize it would be this tasty. But what if you want something that's a little bit brighter and fresher? Well, let me show you this delicious tzatziki roasted potato and cabbage dish. That is a mouthful, but that's all I can come up with right now. We're first going to head on over to our oven and set it to 450 degrees convection bake, and then we're gonna load in a sheet tray. We'll next grab 1.5 pounds of yellow fingerling potatoes, and with a knife, we're just gonna split the potatoes in half. The reason we split them in half is because it gives us more surface area to brown those potatoes, so it's important to split it in half at the widest point possible. Now that all your potatoes are split in half, we're gonna toss them into a bowl and hit them with a little bit of olive oil, salt, and black pepper, making sure to mix it and thoroughly coat them all together. Now, once your oven hit 450 degrees, we're gonna take the sheet pan out of it and we're gonna hit it with a little bit of spray oil. I'm then gonna place our potatoes on the sheet pan, cut side down, and be careful because it should be pretty hot. You wanna hear the potatoes sizzle a little bit, and that'll help us get a really good crust on the bottom of those potatoes. Once they're all loaded up on the sheet pan, we're gonna then throw the sheet pan back in the oven and we're gonna let it bake in there for 30 to 45 minutes. In the meantime, let's get to work on cooking our cabbage. You're gonna need 1 head of cabbage, which cabbage is loaded with a ton of fiber, and it's also just really good tasting, but really good for you as well. I've really just started cooking with cabbage lately, and I've honestly fallen in love with this ingredient. Now, to prep our cabbage, we're gonna first shave off a little bit of that excess root that's poking out the bottom of it. I'm then gonna split it in half and cut down the middle of the root. This root is what holds the whole head of the cabbage together, so as long as you split down the middle of the root, the cabbage will stay intact. I'm then gonna split it down the root once more, and I'm gonna split down the root once more again. I'm only using about half of this cabbage, but you should have 4 nice wedges of cabbage. Now, to prep these wedges. I'm gonna hit them with a little bit of salt on both sides. We're gonna let them sit for 5 minutes. In those 5 minutes, we're gonna start preheating our skillet to medium-high heat. And this is also a great time to clean up any excess cabbage leaves you have all over your workspace. Now at the end of the 5 minutes, I'm gonna drizzle a little bit of olive oil in our pan, and then I'm gonna lay down our cabbage on one side, searing it in the pan. You wanna give this a good sear, like 3 to 5 minutes until you have a nice little crust on it. Once you got it seared, you're gonna give it a flip and sear the other side as well for another good sear, about 3 to 5 minutes. Now from here, I'm just gonna throw my pan with cabbage into the same 450-degree oven as our potatoes. I'm also gonna grab our potatoes and check on them since it's been around the 30-minute mark. Now our potatoes are looking really good, and I'm gonna check underneath to see if they've gotten crispy. And as you see, there's a beautiful kind of glass-like crispy layer on our potatoes. I'm gonna flip over all the potatoes so that way that bottom side doesn't steam and it stays crispy. And just to be safe, I'm gonna also just double check that I could easily pierce the potatoes with the toothpick, which I clearly can. Now while the cabbage cooks in the oven, let's make our delicious tzatziki sauce. We're first gonna grab ourselves 1 English cucumber, and then with a cheese grater, we're gonna grate the whole cucumber into a bowl, which honestly, a cucumber is one of my favorite things to grate because it is so fast and easy. Once you've grated it all down, we're gonna then grab all the cucumber bits and squeeze out all the juice out of it. Give it a few squeezes, really trying to get as much of that juice out of it as possible. All that liquid we don't really want, so we're just gonna discard it and toss it in the sink, but feel free to drink it if you want to. Now in that same bowl, we're gonna toss in 1 pint of plain whole milk Greek yogurt. We're then gonna throw in our grated cucumber, followed by the zest of 1 lemon, which I just zested a lemon and minced it with my knife, followed by the juice of half a lemon, or 18 grams if you wanna be precise. I'll toss in 1.5 tablespoons of fresh dill, which I just picked the leaves off and then ran my knife through it nice and small. I'll next throw in 1 teaspoon of salt, a few cranks of black pepper, and then 2 cloves of garlic that's been crushed. I'm then gonna mix all these ingredients together, making sure they're thoroughly combined, and be careful that you don't get hit with any splatter. Oh, I've been hit. Now this is your tzatziki, which is one of my favorite toppings or sauces you could ever eat with any food. I promise you, you will not be disappointed by the flavor of it. Now our cabbage has been in the oven for 15 minutes, and as you see, a nice char has developed on them, and more importantly, they've cooked on the inside and softened. I'm gonna remove them from that hot pan and put them on a sheet tray so they could kind of cool a little bit. And do yourself a favor, don't forget that that pan is hot and you should be using mittens. Ooh, that's a good one. That's a good one, baby. Woo-hoo. I forgot that handle was ripping hot. I heard a little sizzle, dude. Holy cow. Now to plate this dish, we're gonna throw down a few scoops of our tzatziki and spread it across the plate to give us a nice little bed. I'll then nuzzle in a piece of our roasted and seared cabbage, followed by laying down a few pieces of our roasted glass-like potatoes and finishing it off with some fresh dill just for aesthetic. Now this is your roasted potatoes and cabbage on tzatziki. Again, still working on the title, but that tzatziki is a perfect sauce that pairs beautifully with the potatoes and the cabbage, giving you a high fiber meal that tastes absolutely delicious. But what if you want something with more greens and more cheese? Well, let me show you this eggplant arugula salad. We're first going to head on over to our oven and then set it to broil on high. We're then going to grab ourselves 1 eggplant, and with a knife, we're just going to chop out some nice little circular pieces out of it. You can see my eggplant is actually a little bruised on the bottom half, and it's actually a little soft. I did a bad job picking a good eggplant. That's my bad. But at this thicker point, what we're gonna do is split it in half, so that way the sizes all kind of stay the same. I'm next gonna grab a large sheet pan, and I'm gonna hit it with a little bit of spray oil and then layer all of our sliced eggplant on top of it. I'll hit them with a sprinkling of salt and hit them with some spray oil as well, and then we're gonna throw this in the top rack of our oven that's it's set to broil. Now every oven's broil setting is slightly different, so make sure to check on it every couple of minutes. I'm gonna check on it in 4 minutes. 4 minutes later, we're gonna check on our eggplants, and they've toasted nicely on one side, so we're gonna actually flip them over on the other side, hit them with spray oil, and then throw them back in the oven to broil for just about 2 minutes. Really keep your eye on it. After one more quick session of broiling, everything is looking nice and charred and beautifully cooked. We're gonna now move on to our tomatoes, and we're gonna first need a ripe vine tomato, and we're just gonna run our knife through it, giving us some nice slices out of it. Now this next step is a little extra, but we're gonna put the tomato slices in a strainer, and then we're gonna hit each slice with a little bit of salt. This is gonna boost the flavors of the tomatoes significantly, and you should have a bowl underneath them because it is gonna draw out a lot of the moisture as well, and that drawed out moisture is gonna fall into the bowl. In the meantime, we're gonna quickly get to work on slicing our mozzarella, which just run your knife through it and get some nice little slices out of it. Now we're gonna go back to our tomatoes, and as you can see, nothing really happened. No moisture really got pulled out of them. Usually when I do this with diced tomatoes, it pulls a lot of the moisture out, but I guess with sliced, it just doesn't work that well. Now to plate it all together, we're gonna lay down a bed of nice arugula on the bottom of our plate, and then we're gonna shingle pieces of eggplant, mozzarella, and tomatoes. The order I'm doing is eggplant, mozzarella, eggplant, tomato, eggplant, mozzarella, eggplant, tomato. I'll then hit it with a few cranks of black pepper, hit it with a drizzle of balsamic vinegar, and now you have a nice high fiber eggplant caprese salad. Now, if you want more healthy recipes, I would highly recommend you watch my easy healthy recipes video next. Thank you so much for watching. Please hit the like and subscribe button and have a wonderful rest of your day.